If you guys are building a house, make sure you do not skip this step. This is ever so important to the building process when it comes to planning your network cabling, and many times it gets overlooked, and unfortunately, if that happens, you might be too late to fix it. Hey guys, Tim Trich here with Ethernet Blueprint. Thank you for stopping by. Now this week's video is going to be a continuation of the video we recorded last week. So if you haven't watched that video, I would encourage you guys to do that. Now, if you're here for the first time, basically what's happening is I have a friend who has invited me to help them with their new home construction project and planning out the cabling, planning out the network. We're going to talk about some equipment planning. We're going to build a rack as part of this video series. So we're going to really do the whole process from start to finish, right? So in our first video, we really talked about the planning, some of the things I go through on any project I work through to make sure we get cables in the right place, because there's a time limit of when we can do this. And so that video was solely focused on answering a bunch of questions about what we're trying to build. Do we have outbuildings? Where is Wi-Fi important? Things like that. Then we took that information and we built our access point heat map, our Wi-Fi heat map using Design Center, and we added a couple cameras in there so you guys could kind of see that part of the process. Then we took all the information that we knew, where we needed data drops, where we were going to have access points, and we actually document that process in another free tool called Canva. Now, Canva is a great tool for this because, one, it's free, and two, it allows you to make changes on the fly. It works on your cell phone, so you always have access to what your plan is, and I show you guys how to use that tool for that benefit. Then we wrapped up the video by talking about the builder walkthrough. After you kind of get all your planning together, it is up to you to relay that information and share your vision with the builder in hopes they execute it correctly. Now, today's video is just going to be a continuation of that process, and when I tell you guys that this is critical and it should not be skipped, I really mean it. And unfortunately, this step gets skipped a lot, and that's when problems occur. Now, the part of the process I'm talking about is the post-installation walkthrough. So as our project stands today, all of our cables and future-proofing tubes and everything have been installed in the home, but there is no drywall up. Everything is still fairly exposed at this point. So we get this really, sometimes pretty tight window when we get to go in and just verify that everything is where we want it. So today's video, we're going to do that walkthrough together. We're going to talk about the data jack placement and why we put things where we did. We're going to make sure our access points are where we outline them in our Canva document. We're going to look at our future-proofing tubes and make sure we have a good understanding of how that works. Make sure that we can connect cables or add something down the road, and just double check the work, because it's really easy, guys, for stuff to get forgotten during this process, or maybe it wasn't relayed correctly, or maybe a light got put in a weird place and so they couldn't do something the way they originally thought they could. And so there's just some little things that can come up during these builds, and it's up to us to make sure we have everything we need. So this is when we do it, and if you skip it, unfortunately, that's when stuff gets missed or overlooked, and then you kind of get past the point of no return. So today's video, we're just going to walk around. I'm going to show you some data jacks. I'm going to show you the access points. We're going to talk about cable runs, how our network head-in looks, and I'm going to talk through that process a little bit and just really kind of show you the raw cabling for this property in hopes that it helps you with your planning. So if that's something that interests you guys, come along for the ride and let's go ahead and do our walkthrough. All right, guys, so we're going to start in the office here. This is an office area, kind of a spare office, I guess, in this house. So we're going to start by looking at the access point. Now, I put all my access points for ceiling mounts especially, and in-wall access points in a single gang box. And what that does, it allows me to mount the access point bracket to this box and not drill holes into the drywall, because if you ever have to take something down, now you got to patch drywall holes. So this works really, really well for that. And so you can see this line has been run. There is some slack up in there, which we really, really like. So that's a nice way of running things, is to have some slack built in. It'll help the process. Now in this office, we also have a lower data jack. So I typically call these cut-in rings. Sometimes these are called low voltage boxes. Whatever you guys want to call them is fine. You can see the insulation is in, okay? So that kind of makes it a little more difficult to see what we got going on here, but you can see there is some slack built in here as well. So when it comes time to terminate this box, we can actually do that just by pulling the slack out, terminating it, and leaving the spare or the extra cable in the wall. But drywall is going to be coming soon. So, you know, we want to take a look at this and make sure we have a good understanding what's here today while we can get to the cables. All right, so here's our next one. Now, we didn't really have a purpose for this wall jack. We kind of just put one here because it allows us to change the layout of the room. Maybe you want something hardwired in the back of the room, a speaker or something connected to the network. So we kind of just left this one as an extra. Now, with the drywall or with the insulation in here, it's kind of difficult to see, but I did pull a little bit back up here, and you can kind of see how it's run. So it's just actually run up, and then there's a little nail here that holds it up in place, and then it's just run between the brick or the concrete wall and the wall we have here. So that's going to run back and then over to our rack. All right, so sorry for the limited light here, guys. We're doing the best we can here. But this is one of our entertainment areas. So there's going to be a TV here. We didn't know what the configuration was going to be, so you can see there's a lower jack down here as well as an upper jack, and that gives the homeowner the ability to mount a TV on this wall and be able to hide cabling behind it. Or if he wants to have an entertainment stand down here, that's fine too. We can even run additional cabling up or down because we have this nice conduit tube. So I had talked about that in my last video, that we were going to have some sort of tubing here, and this is what the installer came up with. I think it'll work really, really well. And then we have our power next to it for the TV mounting. Now, one thing I would recommend doing here that they did not do in this case, if you know you're going to have a TV mount on the wall, it's always nice to install some extra support around here across, so you aren't forced to hit these studs. It's nice to have that some 2x6s across here, and it gives you plenty of mounting points for a TV. So if you know a TV is going to go in here, that's a good way to do it. If you're unsure about how you're going to do things, obviously leaving it like this works too. Okay, so here is our other basement access point location. So we are in the hallway here, as you'll see on the diagram. But this is where our other access point is going to mount. Again, single gang box. You can see we have a coil of wire in addition to what's in the box, which is really great. I love it when they do that. They give you nice lengths of cable to work with. I've gone in a lot of houses where they just don't, and so you really forces you to make sure you get that cable crimping really well because you don't have much cable to work with. So I'm really glad they did that. If you guys are installing your own cable, I encourage you, we call this a service loop. It's very, very beneficial because it helps you. Maybe if you need 2 tries, you're practicing your cable terminating and stuff like that. It's just nice to have it. Plus, if something ever needs to move, you just never know, right? Something might have to move, and this gives you that flexibility to be able to do that. All right, guys, so I don't want to bore you with a whole bunch of the same thing, but we are looking at every jack. I just want to I'll kind of keep things flowing here because I realize it's installation you can't see. So this is our back office, okay? So there is a lower jack down here. Again, there's extra cable in the box. You can see the installation. And then if we move over here into the closet, you're going to see the one that we have dedicated for the printer. So there's dedicated power over here, and then there's our low voltage box. Instead of using this as a bedroom closet, which it could be if they needed it to be, they're going to stack their peripherals in here for the office and kind of get them out of the way. So we are going to hardwire the printer using that. Now we are on the back wall of where we just were looking at that tube. A little better light in here, so I'll kind of show you the back side of this. You notice it is a single cable going down. There's slack in both the top box and the bottom box, but it is a single cable. We could have run 2 if there was a need for it, so there could have been an upper and lower data jack, but in this case with the tube, we just kind of gave ourselves the versatility that we can use either or, because the TV wouldn't be mounted in both places. It was going to be mounted in one or the other. And then while we're in here, we have a good view of the ceiling. Here is a cable run that's running upstairs, so you can see how it runs along the rafter up here, and then got a nice little staple, and then it pops up through the floor in the upstairs. So if I'm showing you this because on the off chance that you guys are running your own cables, you know, this is generally how it's done. You kind of figure out a path, where's the best place to pop it up through, and you'll go ahead and just kind of staple it along the rafters, and just try not to run parallel of power lines, okay? There's supposed to be a foot of difference between a power cable or electrical cable and a data cable, so there's no interference. Now, a little bit here and there is fine, and they can run perpendicular to each other in touch, but if they're running next to each other, there should be some distance between it. And you notice the builder here actually put them on different studs to keep that distance between them so there wasn't interference. So well done, guys. All right, guys, so we're going to take a look at the last data jack here, right? This is just another kind of sort of office area. We just put one lower jack in here. Now, we just talked about keeping separation between your electrical cables and your data wires, and you're going to run into situations like this where they're actually going to be sharing a stud, and that makes it difficult. I think the stud in between does offer some you know, some barrier between the two cables, so it helps with the interference thing, but just know this is perfectly acceptable. You'll see this quite a bit. If you can create some separation, great, the more the merrier, but just know that something like this is perfectly acceptable. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about here is our future-proofing, right? So this blue tube that you see up here, right, up there, is a simple ENT tube, right, low voltage tube, and this is what's going to allow our internet provider to bring fiber all the way to the basement from the outside, which is really, really good. This is super important because our rack that we're going to use is actually right behind me. So it's nice that we can actually get service down in the basement. Now, the room that we're standing in is going to be a storage room. There is going to be drywall on the walls, which is why you see the insulation, but it is going to be a storage room. So we can actually, you know, run cable along the top here if we need to, and we'll probably have to when the ISP decides to run fiber. Now I'm going to walk you over to where our rack is going to be so you can see our network head in, and we're going to talk through that a little bit. All right, guys, so again, sorry for the super dark area, but we're doing the best we can without electricity. All right, so a couple things here. Here is where all of our data cables come out, and our rack is actually going to be mounted around this. We're going to do an open frame rack here, and these cables will actually just come right out, right in the back of our rack, and allow us to terminate right into them. It's going to be a very nice, clean look, and you guys are good to see that. We have dedicated power over here, so I asked for dedicated 20 amp circuit to the rack, not connected to any other circuit in the house, so we don't have to worry about a hair dryer or a vacuum cleaner knocking out service to our rack. Now, we are going to put a UPS in here at some point. I don't know if we're going to do it day one, but we are going to put a UPS in the rack at some point. So we're just protecting ourselves from those little oopsies that happen from just owning a house, okay? Now, this tube over here is our future-proofing tube that goes all the way to the attic. So if we ever needed to add a cable, we have the ability to do that. All we need to do is run a cable all the way from up here to the attic, and now once we're in the attic, we can get to any of the four corners of the house, and it makes it very, very easy. And I'll show you this tube when we're upstairs in the house so you guys can kind of see how that's run. Now, here's our cables. Now, one thing I did ask for that we did not get with this home is I asked for these to be wrapped in plastic. Because there's going to be drywall work happening in this area of the home, these cables are going to get really dusty and dirty, and, you know, all that's going to just chip away onto the floor and stuff. Now, because this is just a storage area, maybe that won't matter as much. This is going to be the utility area where the furnace and stuff is in this home, so it's probably less of a concern here. However, if this was in an office with a carpet area and everything, that's just dirt that you're going to have to clean your cables before you can, you know, terminate them in the rack. So I always recommend at the network head end, especially if they're going to be doing some finishing work in here like drywall, to go ahead and wrap these up in plastic. It just helps protect them so you got nice, clean, perfect cables to work with when it's time to install the rack. All right, let's keep the tour going. All right, so here is the rest of the blue tube for the ISP, or the ENT flex tubing, sometimes called Smurf tubing. So as you can see, pops up through the floor, runs all the way up. It's going to be hidden in the wall, goes up through our top rafter up there, and you can see it kind of bends around up and goes out towards to where the ISP is going to be. Okay, so now I'm out in the garage. You can see it from the other end really nice and clear, but it's going to come out into the garage, This is up in the attic space, and then it drops down into the wall and pops outside the wall right here. And I'll show you that real quick so you can kind of see it and put this all together. All right, guys, so this is where it pops out outside the home. Now, we know this house is getting fiber, so we'll put some sort of a waterproof enclosure out here to protect everything. In addition to the blue tube, you can also see they ran some cat wires from here, which is really great. If we weren't having fiber pulled to the property and we were just going to use a standard, Comcast or regular Cox communication cable, we could actually tie our internet into this, which already runs back to the rack. But because we know we're getting fiber at this property, we included the tube. Now, I thought this was a really good idea. This is something that the builder came up with, and I think it's a great idea. So they actually included an additional future-proofing tube from the garage to the attic as well. So you can see we're standing in the garage. Here's another tube, and it goes up the wall, right? And you can follow the orange tube up there, and it just pops out into the attic. Now, what that's going to allow them to do is if we pull something up from the rack, we can actually get it up into the attic. And if we needed to pull an additional data space here to this area, it allows us to just jump from tube to tube and get down into the garage. Now, my friends here, whose house this is, they run some kind of a retail, type of deal from their home. And so this will allow them to expand any coverage out here, credit card machines, whatever they need, very, very easily. It's going to require a trip in the attic, but at the same time, they have the ability to do it once the drywall's up, and I think it's a great idea. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue the tour upstairs. So this is going to be for above the fireplace. You can see the fireplace built in down here. We have an above the fireplace TV, so we have both power and data up here, which is great. You can see they did a good job of separating things, which I think is great. And they left us plenty of slack in our cable in case something ever has to move. Again, well done, builder installers. All right, so we are at an upstairs living room location now. And a little bit of a talking point here is that there is not going to be, with this family, a TV at this location. But we still pulled a data wire, and the reason we did that is because if the house ever ends up being for sale or something changes, it's nice to have that flexibility. So we had really two options here. We could have put a flex tube in to give us the ability to pull a line later, or we could just go ahead and pull the line. If we ever sell the house, this is a very, very logical space for someone to put a TV. It just so happens that this family isn't going to put one here, and that's okay. But we wanted to run the line to give the versatility of the property, and sometimes you got to be thinking through that a little bit, and not necessarily just design for you, but design for what makes the most sense for the space. And I did a really good job here. All right, next we got our main floor access point. This is going to be the only access point on the main floor, so you can see it right there. I'll come around the other side so you guys can kind of see the wiring a little bit better, right? So we just put a single gang box, center of the stud. A lot of times for access points, we'll line them up with the lights so they, it doesn't look awkward. So for aesthetics, they'll line them up with can lights. Works really well, and it's going to do a great job and give good coverage to everything here on the main floor. I'm standing back in the bedroom area where all the rooms are separated, and then you have your living space out there, and it's going to broadcast everything, and it's very, very centrally located in the home. All right, guys, so the tour continues. This time we're in the master bedroom. You can see there's our data jack for our TV. We kind of chose our TV height, right? We knew that we were going to mount this TV on the wall, so we chose our TV height. And you can see power on one side, data on the other side, so everything's good to go here. Shouldn't have any concerns. Okay, so I just backed up a little bit. You can see there's the data jack in the bedroom we were just looking at. But something I wanted to call out here is that understand that maybe how you have your bedroom configured day one might not be its final configuration. And so if you are the type of person who likes to rearrange furniture or buy different bedroom sets or buy different setups and kind of see how the space talks to you, you'll want to plan your data jacks accordingly. Now, we didn't do that in this house. That jack that you're looking at right now is the one that's going to be unused. So we actually could probably finagle that to work if we ever wanted to put a TV on this wall. But the homeowners here were really set on the configuration of the bedroom, and that's okay. We did talk through this a little bit, but just kind of understand if you are the type of person to rearrange furniture, you may want to put a data jack maybe on the opposite wall and power just to accommodate those changes, because by only doing it on a single wall, you kind of lock in where the furniture is going to go. Just something to kind of think about as you design your jacks. All right, guys, not much to see here. That is the upstairs bedroom. So we have our data jack there going up the insulation. Okay, just like you've seen multiple times, but we did want to validate that it is in the right spot, and it is. All right, guys, so the last place we're going to focus on today is the garage and the security cameras and doorbell area. So we did pull a cable to this location in the garage. This is the back wall. It's a really prime location to put a TV, or if we want to extend Wi-Fi out there, we can put an in-wall access point out here very, very easily. As you know, we can also pull a cable to this box over here that we were just talking about a little bit earlier. So we do have some flexibility here, but this is a really good spot for a TV. Again, designing for anybody who would ever live in this house. Something to think about. I don't know if my friends are going to put a TV out here or not, but we did wire for one just in case, because getting service, Wi-Fi service, especially if you have a mesh system or something, a lot of times getting out into the garage can be tricky. And I did show you guys that in the previous video, how the service is okay in the garage. It's not fantastic, but we're not really looking for crazy 5 gigahertz coverage, because we're covered from a cable hardwired standpoint, which is great. All right, so let's move over to our camera location. So we had an interior camera in the garage. And like I mentioned, they run a sort of retail, business out of the garage. So there's some inventory in here, and we just want to make sure we protect it. So this camera is going to really give us a purview of this interior area in case someone ever did get into the home. Now, as you can see, they ran this into a single gang box. Now, this is something typically I don't do for cameras. A lot of times I'll just poke a hole in the drywall for cameras, only because the cameras themselves don't always have a very big base. And so we don't want this box being visible behind the camera. So I need to go back and look at the cameras we're installing at this house to see if a single gang box is going to work. I may come back to the builder and say, can you please remove the single gang box for the cameras in the garage? Now for our outdoor camera, they did the same thing. So here's our camera box there, right on the corner of the eave here. And we're putting the same type of camera in this location. So this box may also be removed as part of the build. We'll just have to see if I can make it work. Okay, so the last place we pulled wires to for this property is the doorbell camera. So we actually pulled 2 wires. One is the standard doorbell wire, the skinnier one, and then we have our cat wire so we can hardwire our doorbell. Now, something to kind of understand here, very similar to what we were just talking about on the ceiling cameras, is we want this to be a nice clean look. So we did talk with the builder about the trim and the space and the size of the Ubiquiti doorbell here, because we want this to be a nice clean look. We also want the ability to maybe push extra cable back into the wall. So we did talk through that with this builder, because we want to make sure that whatever's out here looks really, really good. This area that's black here is going to be stone. So mounting a doorbell to stone is really, really difficult. So in the case like this, we did talk through, hey, will our doorbell mounting kit fit in this area? We even looked it up. It looked up the specs online to make sure the measurements would work. It looked like it would, so they just centered it right in that fascia board, and it gives us a nice, we should be able to do a nice clean look, and I'll show you what that looks like when we install it. All right, guys, so that concludes our walkthrough. Now, I do apologize for the insulation being in place. I was really hoping that I could get in front of that so you guys could actually see how the cables are run. And a few of the places I peeled it back so you could kind of see it. But I know there's some do-it-yourselfers out there that pull their own cable. And so I was really actually hoping to be able to show you a little better on how those cables are run. But you know the building process. Once we start moving forward, it's hard to pump the brakes. So I apologize for that. Now, we've done our walkthrough. As you can see, our builder did a great job. The installers did a terrific job. We only have a couple talking points that we're going to bring up with them. Now, the list is very, very small, but we do want to cover these things before the drywall goes up. So the first thing we're going to ask for is to see if they can wrap the cables down to the network head end in plastic. I know it seems like a little tiny stupid thing, but because they're going to do some finishing work down there, it'll just make our cables nice and clean when we go to install the rack down the road. Now, the other thing is we know we're going to be doing G5 turret cameras outdoors, and I don't know that the base of that camera will actually cover a single gang box. So I'm guessing that we're actually going to have both of those for the outdoor and garage camera removed. And what they'll do in place is they'll just take the gang box down and they'll just poke a hole and allow that cable to go dangle down through the hole into the space, and then we'll terminate it, install the camera right up into the drywall or right up into the fascia of the exterior. It just makes it nice and clean. The last thing you want is to be able to see your single gang box under your camera. Have to do some kind of retrofit thing. If we can catch it now, we want to. So that's going to wrap up the walkthrough, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope this helps you with your builds as you're kind of walking through things and seeing how it's done and some of the talking points we did. And I appreciate you guys coming along on this one, and we'll see you down the road at a future video.